Welcome to the first presentation of William Tells, my attempt at presenting my thoughts and opinions on issues of the day. An explanation. I planned this YouTube channel as a companion to my WordPress entry. A manifesto for the American people. https://amftap.wordpress.com/a manifesto for the American people. This initial content is a long time coming and is a result of several months of encouragement from my PTSD therapist. While at a social event, I can be a rather gregarious personality. I am a very poor public speaker, and even though I am sitting alone in my office at home, you folks are still inside my head. So I have chosen this format, for the time being, to express myself. Who I am. I am a 64-year-old twice divorced father of 2 sons and 3 granddaughters. I am an Ohioan, born and bred in a corn county in central Ohio. I am the product of a Roosevelt, Eisenhower Republican, and a labor union Democrat blended family. I am a free market capitalist conservative. I am a socialist Democrat. I am a veteran of the United States Air Force. I have a degree from the Ohio State University. I am world-traveled. I am a retired bookkeeper, tax consultant, and auditor. I am bisexual, and have been out since 1981. I am a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. I am a red-letter Christian. My development. My major in college was political psychology. With the fall of the Berlin Wall and the subsequent fall of the Soviet Union, I believed that degree was a moot path. Golly, was I wrong. My first introduction into serious politics was working for Mike DeWine as a legislative aide. I attended the 1984 Republican National Convention as an Ohio Young Republican. I left the Republican Party 1985, when the party leaders allowed Jerry Falwell, and his moral majority, a seat at the decision-making table. I have always said I am too liberal for the Republicans and too conservative for the Democrats. And, the Libertarians are scary. Every other party simply is just too narrow-minded to energize all of America. The Republican Party, who they were and what they are. There once was what I refer to as Roosevelt, Eisenhower Republicans, who did believe in common law, common currency, and common defense. Those who believed in education, protecting public lands and natural resources, tax equity, liberty for all, and a strong nation unafraid of having welcoming arms. But then, somehow it was decided to allow the so-called moral majority to have a voice in the decision-making and in the shaping of the party's issues platform. This began the inbreeding of the white Christian nationalist and their associated mental health difficulties. There are no longer any moderates in the so-called Republican Party. Since the mid-1980s, anyone who remained in the party or joined the party has either knowingly and with malice in their hearts or through pure stupidity aided and abetted the evil machinations of the Christian right. For all his faults, and his firm belief in the supremacy of states' rights over federal rights, Barry Goldwater did have some forethought. In a 1994 interview with the Washington Post, Goldwater said, "When you say, radical right, today, I think of these money-making fellows like Pat Robertson who are trying to take the Republican Party and make a religious organization out of it. If that ever happens, kiss politics goodbye." And, he repeated his concerns about religious groups attempting to gain control of the Republican Party, saying, "Mark my word, if and when these preachers get control of the party, and they're sure trying to do so, it's going to be a terrible damn problem. Frankly, these people frighten me. Politics and governing demand compromise. But these Christians believe they are acting in the name of God, so they can't and won't compromise. So, here we are, and Barry Goldwater's prophecy has come to fruition. There is nothing political about what is on the Retrumptican agenda. Retrumpticans only pass legislation which is beneficial to the citizenry when it is forced upon them, otherwise it is just cultural mudslinging. It is time we demand Congress give us, the citizenry, actual oversight into their policies, procedures, and any ethics investigations." Donald Trump. Everyone, in both the legacy, corporate media and the independent media, treat Trumpty as if he is some sort of evil mastermind, but nothing can be further from the truth. The man has failed at every business venture he has attempted. He has used fraud to keep his inherited real estate business from going bankrupt. Does this sound like someone capable of being the mastermind of a movement to change the direction of our country? The answer is no. We need to look behind the talking bobblehead and see who is really pulling the puppet's strings. And those players could be many. The Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, the Koch brothers, other shadowy CEOs, ALEC, or any of the other conservative think tanks. Remember, Trumpy couldn't even organize his White House to get any legislation passed. The Supreme Court. Maybe a Federalist court is a good thing. I am starting to believe that maybe a Federalist Supreme Court may just be a good thing. The Supreme Court seems to believe that most issues belong to the states to decide. Well, let them. Look at what they have done. Laws can be changed at the whim of any legislative body, at any time, for any reason. But due to the reversal of Roe v. Wade, grassroots movements all across America are being mounted to establish state constitutional amendments to protect women's rights. And these amendments will not so easily be canceled or changed. What Americans need to do is to redirect the outrage about Roe v. Wade to the other important issues of gun control, marriage equity, and voter equity. We need grassroots changes to constitutions on the state and federal level to protect all of these issues. We need to move on these issues now, not later. Now, in some states, the citizens will be stuck living under the jackboot of their Retrumptican overlords, maybe for years, until a large enough grassroots movement can force a change. Unfortunately, there are some states that are just too devoted to the white Christian nationalist philosophy, and they will never enact humanitarian legislation, so the best and only option for liberal-minded people in those states is to move. There should be an organization specifically organized to assist people trapped in red states to help them relocate to blue states. Tyranny never prevails, and eventually it is defeated. It is my belief that even in red states common sense will eventually overcome the psychosis of the religious right. The decisions of the Supreme Court to let the states codify issues like abortion, mental health, and access to voting will lead to a much more equitable and even uniform solutions. Maybe the Democrats will come up with their version of ALEC and begin to mass-produce amendments for all states to codify abortion rights, gun control, congressional districts, voting procedures. You know, all of those pesky issues which the Supreme Court seems not to be interested in. So having a Federalist Supreme Court to keep states firmly planted within the boundaries of the Constitution, while still limiting the power of the federal government over the day-to-day lives of us citizens, is a good thing. Of course, this does require citizens to take an active role in directing their individual states, and that is hard. The Congress. Why is there no civilian accountability? If the third section of the 14th Amendment disqualifies people who, having previously taken an oath, as a member of Congress, to support the Constitution of the United States, from serving in Congress if they aided, abetted, or comforted any person who engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, then why is the architect of the House of Representatives Republican caucus attempt to aid in the illegal attempt to overturn the will of we the people and our duly chosen electorates to perform their duties to validate the fair and valid election still in office? How can he be allowed to be our representative to the world as our speaker? Not to mention the other 139 criminal members, who also sided with the insurrectionists to overthrow our democracy. Where is that one representative with a backbone willing to stand for America and demand the speakership be vacated? I took a Pew Center survey the other day, to see where I stand on the political spectrum. One of the questions was if I believed the government needed to be completely overhauled from the ground up. While I believe many of the cabinet-level departments need some serious tweaking, I am coming to believe that the rules of the Congress need a serious overhaul. Congress has been self-policing for too long, and they suck at it. From James Comer's shady land deals, members using classified briefings to make stock trades, members blocking or passing legislation to benefit their stock portfolios, are just them receiving under-the-table gifts. The grifting that goes on in Congress is criminal. The future. As a retiree, on a fixed income, with a 14-year-old son, I am particularly aware of how important budgeting is and the importance of managing debt. For the sake of our children, we need to get our national debt under control, and the only way to do that is to increase our income. Which only leaves us one path. I mean, the average American is already paying their fair share. So, I will leave it to the viewer to determine the best way to raise the needed capital to fund our government. As for the next election, while I will stand with President Biden for as long as he is president and I have no issue with his age, I will say this about age and then leave it lay. If Joseph R. Biden is too old to be president, then any person who is or will turn 80 years old at any time during their term of service is too old for public service and should therefore not be allowed to seek public office, and if they are currently in office they should immediately resign. Because as they say, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. But for the good of America I would consider options. I was wrong about Barack Obama. I did not believe America would elect a black president, so I could be wrong about Kamala Harris. But, I do not believe America is ready for a lady president, let alone an African American lady president. Once President Biden wins the Democrat primary, maybe he should announce his heir apparent, be it Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, or some other capable person with Kamala Harris remaining as VP and then President Biden stepping aside. New blood, standing with a powerful and wise mentor, to do battle with a doddering old fool, who is being propped up by archaic mythology. Conclusion. Conservatives have kept their heads in the sand for far too long, and have lost their party to the religious zealots, who they allowed to usurp control. For those people, their only choice is to form a new political organization, under a different name, for the word Republican is forever tarnished. MAGA Republicans, Retrumpticans, do not care about the issues that honest and moral conservatives such as my uncle and grandfather were concerned with. I have shared my story, opinions, and thoughts and chanced ridicule in hopes that maybe it will encourage some of you to step up and demand more from your elected officials. So start with your school boards, your city councils, your county commissioners, and your state houses. You must begin to take them back from those who would shackle you. In closing, I return to Barry Goldwater. I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also, that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.